Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel Paspian, and I am your host. And today I am joined by a very special guest, Marie. Marie is going to tell us all about her journey from a ecologist to a business mentor, her spiritual awakening, and the impact that it's had on her career, her life path, and how she focuses on feminine-centered mentorship and integrating natural cycles into personal development, which I think is so fascinating from a female standpoint. So thank you, Marie, for being here. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So can you tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself and what you do and just a little tidbit about you?
Sure. So I'm running an online business manager agency. We're a small team and we cater to our soulful entrepreneur clients, life coaches, yoga teachers, holistic healers, spirit workers, all those people that create content and they need help with the systems of their business, their website,
Yeah.
their cart, their online courses, all these things. So we have these services, and I also mentor clients to help them grow into their leadership and CEO roles.
That's amazing. And so how did you get into this? It's not like a career you were thinking of as a child, I'm assuming. So what got you into wanting to do this?
Oh, when I was a child, internet wasn't even a thing, I think.
I do
So
get that, yes.
I was not dreaming about this. I studied zoology at university. I loved my ecology career, but I realized that the money was in clients that wanted to actually destroy natural
Yeah.
environments and build condos on top of them. So at some point, I just couldn't do that anymore. It was just so misaligned with my values.
Yeah.
So I had to find some other skills, and it wasn't a straightforward route at all. But I stumbled upon virtual assisting, and then it grew into that. And now I'm really honed into my skills and my strengths.
That's amazing. And so when you now mentor and you do this, but you do it with like a spiritual kind of persona to it. So your spiritual awakening, what triggered that and like how has that changed your outlook on life?
So when I was 20 years old, I studied in Australia to learn about zoology and ecology, and I loved it. Um, I was naive, I was impressionable, and I started seeing someone that was almost twice my age. And during that brief dating period, he transmitted, I got herpes from him.
Yeah.
And that got me into a huge spiral, first of shame, and then it could have been anything, it
Yeah.
could have been HIV. I could have gotten
Could have been,
AIDS.
yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, I put myself into that situation. Thankfully, the doctor explained to me, three-fourths of the population have cold sores. So,
Yes.
and you won't die from them. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, phew, but
Still
still,
traumatizing.
still traumatizing. I was far away from home. I live in Canada. I was in
Yeah.
Australia. My parents didn't understand the situation. I My friends were very religious, so I wasn't, but like I didn't feel comfortable sharing that with them.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it was a shock, and I immediately took responsibility for my own behavior. How I agreed to things I didn't necessarily want, and then from one step to another, that led to this. So that was a big moment of introspection, of reassessing my priorities and putting myself higher on the list for once, stopping
Yeah.
people pleasing. And I started meditating. I started reading on spirituality, like the Tao Te Ching. I already had a yoga practice, so I was already familiar with energy and a bigger something around us. But that really was the moment that it turned the switch on for me.
I mean, number one, I'm so sorry that you went through that, and especially at such a young age. Like I mean, our brains are mush at that point, and we know nothing, and we're so impressionable. And I mean, with society around you and everything else. And I couldn't imagine being that far from home in a completely different country too, having to deal with that. So I think it's made you obviously stronger and it's taught you some things. I mean, so the one silver lining for that is, and it's also like shifted your spiritual awakening, which I mean, that's really, it's a focus point for you right now in your life. How has the spiritual awakening helped in your career shift?
Well, still at that time, I was studying ecology. So I was asking inward or, listening inwardly, where am I meant to go? What am I meant to do? And there was no clear answer. So I just continued on my path. And I had my daughter, like many years passed until I switched my
Yeah.
career. Um, but I was always listening and ready for, the nudge to shift or change or take a more decisive step into a direction or another. And it happened when I burned out at my at my desk job,
Yeah.
and I
We've all
had
been
to
there.
let go.
Yeah.
And it was very clear. I had that relationship already with the divine, so I didn't doubt it. I just had to figure out how to actually, make it work in life. But other than that, I knew that was what my next step was.
Yeah. And has anything that you learned from being in ecology and working with animals and taking that kind of study, has any of those experiences helped you in your career path now?
Oh, for sure. First of all, I believe that diversity is very natural and such an advantage. So I'll
Okay.
never have a blueprint that is the same for any two clients because everyone has their own goals, their own energy levels, their own life, family, whatever priorities, and skills too. Like if you're shy on video, the strategy won't be to create 1,000 videos, for your
Yeah.
marketing. There are so many ways to leverage your strengths and make them work. Um, so yeah, I'm always a bit wary of people that say this is the best of whatever, because, well, maybe for you, but there are many bests. And it all works together and it's designed like that we're all different.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I mean, doing it from an ecology standpoint, that has to have like informed you about human nature and things like that, I assume.
Yes, very much. And it even opened me up to more, well, being more sensitive to equality, to racism, to queer inclusivity, anything like that. Everyone has their own strength. So yeah, I'm just super happy that I'm not working with clones of myself and my
Yeah.
team because we wouldn't be going far anyways. Well, I'm good, but we're even better that we're different and skilled.
No.
Like just like a sports
Yeah.
team, you just you don't just want goalies, you want the whole team.
I think having different perspectives is what makes a great team. Like you can't have
Exactly.
everybody that thinks the same because then you're going to all go at a problem the same way. And having that one person or multiple people that think different could help you think in a whole different way and solve a problem in a way you never thought you could. The learning feature.
Yeah, for problem solving, but also just for envisioning and growing the business. Everyone has their own personal goals and dreams, and that informs how they want to show up in the business. And that's going to shape our mission as time passes. I I view a little bit the business as its own entity, like an ecosystem that's made up of us as the species in it. And
Mhm.
well, I think it relieves the stress of having to decide something for sure, and we have to stick to that. Now it's gonna change, it's gonna evolve, and it's gonna be exciting because we don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be informed by our desires and our passions and whatever life throws at us.
No, that's so true. What has been, you think, the biggest challenge and the biggest reward in having this career shift?
Well, I like to liken being an entrepreneur like house cats that are more like the employed people and a
Mhm.
lynx or a tiger that are the entrepreneurs. It's super rewarding to be free and to do whatever we want, but we have to hunt. We have to find our clients. We are totally responsible for having food on the table every night. So the challenges are the hunt, but the rewards are the freedom.
Oh, that's so interesting. I love that kind of sentiment there, that you get the freedom from it and it really helps it all flow. That's amazing. What has been like the main lessons that you've learned in personal development? And like what are like the top things that you want to let people know about in personal development?
Well, I will say all our journeys are different. And well, I'm a manifesting generator in human design. So
Hmm.
my energy type is to go towards what brings me joy and creativity. And I can be a bit fickle or airy about that, but that's the way I work. So I'm going to share from that perspective. But
Yeah.
whatever catches my attention and suddenly I want to spend the whole night learning about, well, that's the best idea from the universe that I can follow. Even if my mind says, no, that's not responsible. You decided you were going to post your blog tomorrow morning and you should be working on your blog instead. That's not the best idea for me. Actually, my brain isn't that aware of the whole, like, of my soul's purpose. So
Yeah.
I'm learning to surrender more, follow the joy, just the breadcrumbs of joy, and see where that leads. And often there are so many synchronicities and serendipity and other like miracles that happen from it. And it just makes life even more special. Otherwise, that's when, if I really am stuck on my plan and I'm like, no, I know this is success and it will be my way.
Yeah.
um, I become so frustrated. I tread water. Um, I'm working against, like, I need a lot of willpower to make it happen because I'm not being fed from it. It's just a disaster all around. And then I get a migraine and I need to reset.
I'm trying to find the joy.
Yes, exactly.
So, can you explain a little bit to the listeners what it means to be a manifestor generator and like the human design part of that? I'm not sure if everybody knows exactly. I've read a little bit about it online, but what exactly is human design?
Well, I'm also a beginner in that area, but
Yeah.
manifestors will have visions and they'll have a ton of visions, lots of ideas, and ideally they'll delegate them to very competent people that will make them happen. Generators are like their teammates that will make things happen. And I'm the mix of the two. So I have ideas, but the best situation for me is, let's say a client comes to me and says, I want to do something, but I'm not sure how. So I'll be manifesting the how and generating also the action steps for
Yeah.
going towards it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's super interesting. I know you can take tests and quizzes online, so everyone, you should go and Google the free tests and see what you are, because I've heard a lot of people talking about human design, and once they find out what they are, it's like this enlightening moment for them of like, wow, no, I really am like this, and like I do these things and trying to help
Mm-hmm.
people out that way. So I think that's amazing. As you're being a business mentor and you're using all of these different things and the different practices that you do, how do you see growth for yourself in being a mentor and like on your own self-development?
Well, I don't know what the future holds. I know I'm going to double down on my strengths, and
Yeah,
some of them are very stable. For example, working in a team, being a leader, um, learning so many things because I'm so curious and I always want to learn more. So right now I'm learning about negotiation. Um, and in terms of personal development, I'm always deepening my own intuition. So journaling is super important to me. I like to draw the tarot and just making a practice of listening in word throughout my day. Like, what task should I do today? And then just feel like, what is appealing to me right now? Or should I take this street or that street when I walk to the grocery store? And most of the time, nothing special happens. Like, I don't see unicorns, I don't see a cute guy, but who knows how I've been impacted someone else's life? Maybe I saved myself from a near encounter with a car. Like, who knows? I'm just
yeah,
trusting that, and building that just makes me more ready to say yes when weird opportunities happen and I can feel right away if they're right for me.
that's amazing. And so you also, in your concept of business mentoring, you bring in the concept of feminine cycles into it. Can you explain how you integrate that? I found that so fascinating when we were talking.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just really curious about spirituality in general because of my awakening, because I've been doing yoga before even that time. So when I learned about astrology and the gene keys and the moon phases and my own feminine cycle, I realized, well, sometimes it's no coincidence that I'm less talkative when I'm just at the end of my cycle, or
Yeah.
some evenings I'll have so much energy and then I'll look and the moon is in a house that is super outgoing for me. So I use it on myself. I use it to plan my work, to plan my meetings. Like I won't get in a meeting if I'm super homey and I'm I'm just menstruating. That won't
Yeah.
be productive. And I also ask my mentees to track that and to make decisions according to that. So sometimes that means planning for a longer lunch period, just because
Okay.
we will be tired anyways, or we will be more inspired. So either we're fighting against it or working with it. And I'm much more of the thought school to work with it.
No, and that makes complete sense. So I was wondering how syncing personal growth or how syncing your cycle with your productivity, how does that really help? I know you said like from the talkative points and like you're not doing meetings at some points, but what are some tips and tricks to know when syncing your cycle for productivity?
Okay, so I guess the first tip I would give would be to download any kind of cycle tracking app. My favorite is My Flow from Alyssa Vitti, but
Mhm.
any well, hers is really good because it tells you what your energy levels are, how your brain is working, what foods to eat, how much like exercise to do, and that really helps enhance the type of energy your body is creating at the moment. And
Okay.
then generally, the first part of the cycle, we're becoming more and more social and talkative, and creative. So being inspired, having ideas, wanting to make them happen. And the second part of the cycle, we're more focused, more introverted, and just making it happen, and then rest at the end.
Okay. All right. That's so cool. And you feel like this helps you in your corporate life just because you then know like what your personality is going to be and your mood and like your ability to be productive at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I like to think of it as, the saying, as within, so without. Like I can ignore it, but I find it happens anyways. Like
Yeah.
whether I read my horoscope or not, my life will happen anyways too. So I think it's just more smart. It's just smarter to be aware of it and work with it rather than the opposite. So I'll plan like content creation when I'm more talkative and have more ideas and more inspired, and then more grunt work in my second half when, let's say, I have a bigger project and I just need to do a lot of work on it. Well, then
Yeah.
it's good for me. I'm less distracted. I'm less, I don't have the scroll effect of, oh, everything is a great idea and I should make them all happen. I'm just happy to focus on one thing and do it for a segment of time. So, for example, when I do an online course, I learn so many online courses.
I love that.
Um, the second half of my cycle is great because I'm delighted to work like 6 hours on a course on a given day,
Yeah.
but not on my first half.
No, you're like, I don't want to be doing this. I want to be
I'll do half
horizontal
an
on the
hour
couch.
and
Yeah.
then think of something else and sketch out an idea, and then that gives me another idea. So it's different.
That's
And I'll
so
want to see
cool.
my girlfriends because I'll be more social too.
I mean, that's so interesting. And like, that's how people can finally find their productivity or see what like the best times are for them to pursue certain goals. So this can actually make people more productive. It can make them more creative by like really channeling this.
Yeah, exactly. It's all productive if you're doing an activity that's syncing with what your body is best at right now. So otherwise, I find that's when we become unproductive, that we fight to be something that the brain and everything else isn't really ready
Yeah.
for us to do right now. Yeah.
No, that's so cool. But what about for men? So, what is the differences for men and women in the approach to the task that they're taking? Because they're
Well,
not in the
gender is
cycle.
a
Hmm.
spectrum,
Okay.
so we can't box the two into discrete. Yeah, we can't make two discrete categories, but it's a spectrum. Some women will won't be affected as much by their cycle, and others will be much more affected. I am very much affected. And some men will notice the fluctuation of their energy in the day or throughout the month, maybe with the moon. But also, I believe there's a difference in the choice of tasks that we make and the choice of work that we make. And if we have a creative career of creating content or art or products, then there's the cycle of creativity, of being inspired, doing something, and then needing a break so that inspiration can come again. And if you're a man or you choose a more male dominated career, then maybe it's not as creative, and thus there are less fluctuations in the kind of output you need to do at work.
Okay.
So it's a part of choices and social preferences or conditioning, and also our bodies, which are all different. Some men are more sensitive, some women are less
Yeah.
sensitive, and it's all beautiful.
So, when we're thinking about using our cycle to like pursue goals, are the techniques more like you should be, this is going to take a couple months, obviously, or possibly years to really understand your cycle and like differentiate when you're feeling up and when you're feeling down? Is the tricks really to like write it down and be like, this day I was feeling like this day I was feeling like that? How do you track
Yeah,
all of that?
yes. Keeping a journal can be a good idea if that's something that works for you. Um, I tend not to review my notes, so I don't really do it. But just like a food journal, you can write the date and how your energy is, and then after a month, um, or after a week, whatever, afterwards, just see where you were in your cycle or where the
Yeah.
moon was in your chart, um, so that you don't, you know, change your answers depending on what you already know about those, and then go from there. If you don't really see a correlation, then maybe it's not something you're very aware of, or maybe something stronger is driving your energy. There are so many things that affect us. As I said, the moon, our cycle, just the seasons and our projects. If you have to do a lot of work, well, tired or not, you
Yeah.
have to do it. And
Yeah.
sometimes we still find the mindset and the motivation to, make it pleasant and productive. So yeah, that's not the only factor, but it's a big one, I find.
No, that makes sense. So, how do you feel that listeners can start their own journey for the holistic approach to personal development? What are some things that they should be looking to do?
Well, I love to track my cycle. So as I said, finding a cycle app helps. I also have an astrology app just because I like to know in which house the moon is. I find that's relevant in my life.
Which do you
And other
recommend?
than, I really like Chani.
Okay.
It's simple. Um, all the information is there, and she even gives you a little briefing for the day. So you know what, like how best to use that energy for yourself.
Okay.
And other than that, I would say practicing to listen inwardly, um, just to build that relationship with your intuition. It can be through journaling, it could be um, drawing, taking walks, being in nature, um, but just making sure that you keep that connection alive so that when you have nudges to slow down or to pursue a new idea, well, you do it.
1,000%. That just makes so much sense. Are there anything else, any tips, tricks, or anything you'd like to tell the listeners about personal development in your business mentoring?
Um, Honor your boundaries. Maybe it comes from the hard lesson I learned when I was 20, but
Yeah.
put yourself first and don't feel bad to say no, because it might disappoint or, make someone, disappoint someone. If you're not at your best, then you cannot really help them. So honor your boundaries and trust the nudges you feel in your life, because they are much better ideas than any one you could have in your mind.
No, that's great advice. And so the last question I ask every guest, which is not on the outline, is going a little further back before 21. If you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be? She's a different person.
Going into ecology is such a great idea. Go for
I
it.
love that. You're like, you did it right. Like, go follow your gut.
It was the path. Everything is the path. So no advice other than do it. Do whatever you feel like. That's going to be the answer.
That's amazing.
It's going to be your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And it's such good advice. And it's advice we should listen to in our day-to-day lives now. Like, follow the path. Like, just stay on it, try it. Why not?
Yeah, and you're always on the path. Like it's going to bring you wherever you need. So no worries.
I love that. Well, can you tell the listeners where they can find you online and find your business so they can tap into that?
Yes, absolutely. So my website is delightedspirit.com, and they can find me on Instagram and Thread at Delighted Spirit.
Love that. Thank you so much, Marie, for being on the podcast. I think the listeners are going to get so much out of this and really understand different ways to get to their personal journeys and a holistic approach that's going to be really healthy for everyone.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a joy.
All right, everyone, tune in and we will see you next week.